Hey guys, doing a little bit of work on Gretchen the Gleaner tonight. Working on some roller chains. This is the chain that came off the combine. This is a new piece. Right now I'm just comparing the difference between the two, seeing how badly this piece is stretched compared to a new piece of chain. You can see we're getting off a bit. So by the time you get down to this end, you can see the difference is pretty extreme until you get down to here. They've actually added, they've taken the last full link off and put a half link in here to try to shorten this chain up. So I'm going to cut this one right here, and then that's where we'll join with our new master link. Yeah, just comparing the difference in the pitch of the chain from this being worn so badly to the other not. You can see how much slop is there. That much wear in the chain will cause a lot of wear on your sprockets, and that's you can tell that combine's been run for a long time with worn out chain because the sprockets look pretty bad. But just thought that was interesting. Okay, so right here, this is the chain that we just cut. I don't have it readjusted yet. I need to go talk to a friend of mine and see if I can get some material from him. I'm gonna try to make new tension blocks for this out of UHMW plastic. But anyway, I was getting ready to cut or start on the chain that goes back here. I've got it off. It is there on my makeshift workbench, and of course, spinning things. That one's a little noisy, that's to be expected. This one actually sounds better than it did when I spun it the first time. But get a load of this. See this moving back and forth. So that tells me that this shaft is bent. You can see that it's had kind of a hard life already. Somebody's driven some shim in there, so I don't think we should be surprised that it's bent. So anyway, get some light in here. I'm gonna have to disassemble this and then work on getting that shaft out. So I think that's gonna be the next thing I'm gonna tackle, I think. Let's see if this junky puller will take this off or not. Of course, it won't stay in the middle. I think it's moving. Finally. Okay, so I was mistaken about how this comes out, or somewhat. This fan does not actually come apart. These studs and the nuts just pinch this together around these square blocks on the shaft. The square blocks are what drive the fan. So I've got all 6 of the nuts loose. So from here, I guess I need to, I'm going to try to get the bearing off of the other side and then pull the shaft out this direction toward the right-hand side. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, so I've got the shaft out, brought it up here to the shop and put it in the lathe. And this is a 36-inch long shaft, and this is a 36-inch lathe. So we're kind of pushing the limits here of what will fit. Actually, it really technically doesn't fit, but anyway. I am debating right now what's going to be the best way to go about fixing this. So our bearing sits in this area right here. I can tell that this is worn unevenly, which is what was causing the bearing to, or what was causing it to rock and make the outside of the combine flex. This out here where the gear goes is worn horribly. That's the old flat from the set screw. You can see how that is, and then this out here has been worn so bad that somebody has tried to fill that up with JB Weld at some point. And so I'm debating right now what's going to be the best way to fix this. If I weld this up and try to save this shaft, I'm going to have to weld it all the way back to about here. I'm going to have to get all this junk out of here first. Or, the shaft is not particularly hard. You can cut it fairly easily with a file. I have a piece of 1-inch cold rolled right there. This is a 1-inch shaft. That's plenty long enough to make it out of. And these are just 1.25 inch square steel blocks welded on in 3 places. So I'm debating right now, and I'm kind of leaning towards making 3 of these blocks and just cutting a new shaft and welding it together and just making a new shaft rather than trying to fix this one. In addition to that, this is the sprocket. I said earlier, I think I'd said earlier that this was a cast sprocket, and I actually believe that this is steel because you can see where the hub has been welded to it. On my all-crop combine, the sprockets like this on it are cast, and I've cracked one of them actually by over tightening it. But the hub on this is totally trashed too, but now seeing that this is welded together, I think that it's not going to be that big of a deal to cut that old hub out and either buy a hub or machine a new hub to fit the shaft whenever I do that. So that, I think, simplifies things. I'm still not really sure, but anyway, that's where we're at on the sprocket too. Okay, so I've been thinking about how to do this. I had a rare moment of mental clarity, and I thought, well, if I'm going to make a new shaft, I don't really need to leave these blocks on the old shaft. I can just cut these off of there, and then I don't have to make new blocks and weld them onto the new shaft. So that's what we're going to do. I've got these cut off. They're roughly positioned where they need to be. I'm going to clamp everything down to this piece of tubing because that's the closest thing I have to a straight flat surface that I'm not afraid to weld on right now. And I'll get those, get the blocks welded in place, and then we'll do the little bit of work we need to out here in the middle. Okay, so here's our completed sprocket. It's cooled off. And there is the completed shaft. And there is a box full of bearings. So I would say we're ready to put this back together, but I found another problem the other day. I had the combine outside because I was putting the planter and everything away, and I found another issue we need to deal with before the shaft can go back in. So I'll go show you what that is. Okay, so we're back out here at the combine, and as you can see, we've got some cracks. This one is the biggest one. It comes clear down here all the way up to there, but it's cracked around all of the bolt holes, and the other side has cracks in it as well. So because this is so thin and it's galvanized, I don't think it's worth trying to weld it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a drill, probably an 1/8 inch drill bit. I'm going to drill a hole at the end of each crack, try to keep the cracks from spreading any farther. And then we're going to cut a piece of sheet metal. We'll cut out our hole and our 3 bolt holes to match this in that. We'll lay it over top of this, and then we'll come farther out and bolt it in. So hopefully that will hopefully spread the load of this out over a greater area and get us out to where we're using better part of the steel that's still here. So the other side of the combine is not quite as bad as this, but it's still got several cracks, so we're going to do the same thing over there, and hopefully this will work out. Well, I got it back together. I say that looks a whole lot better than it was. I'm gonna say we'll call that a successful repair. I've got a new bearing in this idler, and I've got a new bearing in this idler. However, we're not quite done down here because that gear is supposed to line up with this gear, and they don't line up very well. So I'm thinking somebody has replaced this bolt, and that's not the correct spacer on the inside, so we'll have to work on that. But we'll do that at a different time. So anyway, this video probably got way too long for what it is, and but I'm gonna call it here and say thank y'all for watching. And say with the 2 bearings on this shaft, the 2 bearings in the idlers. That brings us up to 17 bearings total that we've put in this combine so far. I've got new bearings also for the eccentrics and for the eccentric shaft. I don't know that I'm going to video that because it's just more of me changing bearings, and that's not terribly interesting. So if something interesting happens, then I'll bring you back for that, but I don't foresee that actually being interesting. So anyway, if you're still here, thank you all again for watching, and we're getting closer slowly, but yeah, thank you again. I hope you all have a good one.